Brilliant. So thank you for joining us for Barnsley and Rotherham's Chamber of Commerce reflection of week 1 of Brexit. Obviously, we weren't expecting when we first started planning for Brexit that it would be in the midst of a pandemic as well. So we've got 2 massive situations going on. But we're together for an hour. We've got Kyle McDonald from Presto, we've got Luke Williams from Newland Wright Transport, and it's an opportunity for us to be able to ask questions about what's going on, some observations from 2 experts that are in the thick of it all the time. And when I say ask questions, there's an opportunity for a question and answer session at the end. If anything pops into your mind and you want to just put it on the chat function, you're welcome to type a question and we'll make sure that that's asked. As far as Brexit's concerned, this is about obviously import and export. There are a few questions people are asking. Is there more or less red tape? What forms need filling in? Internal policy revisions and what operational changes are businesses? What can they be expecting? You've got things around VAT and tax variations and regulations at our borders related to the movement of goods. So we're all hoping that short-term pain in the long run will be a long-term gain. Now, prior to Christmas, we saw lots of media pieces about HGVs all backed up in Dover. It seemed like a temporary blockage, but obviously this is an island that imports more than it exports. So it'll be really, really useful to hear in particular the issues or the concerns that businesses have, and that's useful for us as a chamber so that we can work to make things as simple as possible for our members, but also we take concerns, we take members' issues in business in our local area and we take them up the chain to the British Chambers of Commerce, and they also take those to government. So we've got some really good meetings with ministers and people that we can always relay information back to. So any question is not a silly question. Feel free to wait until the end if you want to ask in the question and answer section. Otherwise, feel free to throw any questions in the chat box whilst we're hearing from our panelists. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we're going to start with Luke Williams from Newland Wright Transport, and he looks after truck haulage, rail freight, and works alongside the shipping lines as well. So over to you, Luke.
Hi everyone. Everyone all right?
All good.
Excellent. Just to give you a brief synopsis, really, of what we do at Newland Wright. We are an independently logistics-run business. We cover all aspects of haulage, from container haulage through to a bit of general, with our rail and intermodal fleet mixed in with that as well. As I said, we're privately owned, so we haven't got we're not overburdened with a huge national infrastructure. So we're very locally based, very proud to be from Sheffield and Rotherham border. So we as a business, through the Brexit, through Brexit and all the challenges that have come with it, first and foremost, I think our industry, the container industry anyway, has got its own issues, irrespective of what's going on with all the Brexit problems at the moment. We've got our own issues with congestion on port. Coronavirus itself will no doubtly impact every one of our businesses at some point. We've had issues with coronavirus, indirect issues with shortages on port, which has resulted in longer delays, etc., on port, and numerous problems with that. So our industry as a whole has got a plethora of problems at the moment. Freight rates are skyrocketing, which is really squeezing customers at the moment, and ultimately we may not see it at the moment, but I would say 6 months down the line, really it's only going to hit the average Joe, you, me, and anyone on the street. We'll see prices rise, unfortunately, because of lack of equipment in the Far East. Said freight rates are skyrocketing. You could be able to get I would say maybe 5-6 weeks ago, you could get a container from the Far East into mainland Europe for about $800. Now it's rocketed to $18,000. So it's that was the latest. That was yesterday. So it's the industry as a whole is really suffering at the moment. The container industry, anyway. It may all sound doom and gloom, but when it comes to Brexit, to be perfectly honest with you, our business really hasn't suffered at all. If we're in the first 2 weeks of the business, the majority of the containers we collect are from the major UK ports, so your Felixstowe, London Gateway, Tilbury, Southampton as well. And while they all have delays and congestion on port because of Christmas and New Year backlogs, really Brexit hasn't impacted those. All the containers that generally come in, unless they come in from smaller ships, i.e. feeders from mainland Europe, are all from the Far East. So clearance is already, there's no issue with clearance at all. It's only delays that we're really facing, but it's not really Brexit, an issue with that's come from Brexit, to be perfectly honest with you. So in terms of our business, as I said, not so much of a Brexit impact, but an overall industry impact of the issues that have faced us since COVID and the inevitable delays with that. We'd like to think that I spoke briefly to our MD yesterday. We're not just a transport business, Newell and Wright. We're multifaceted. We've got a container, a tanker manufacturing business at Barnsley, associated businesses in Scotland and lie in Birmingham as well. So there's lots of as well as our fuel company, Apollo Fuel. So there's lots of strings to our bow. The only real impact our MD says, told me yesterday after a brief convo with him, was his ability to gain the raw materials from mainland Europe to construct his tankers. Now, he says with a bit of foresight and with a bit of planning prior to Brexit, he's managed to source orders for those which have already arrived in the country prior to the deadline. If anything, he says, given the deal that Boris has made with Europe, it's worked out better for us because of the zero duty. So all in all, it's a positive on Brexit, believe it or not, from Newell and Wright.
That's good. I like that. We don't want negative, so that's really good. It's nice to hear something that's positive, to be fair. Thank you for that, Luke. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. Shall we move over to Kyle? Is that okay if you want to
fine.
Give an update?
Just 1 second. Okay, so I work for the company Presto International. We are importers and exporters of power tool accessories and engineers cutting tools. We've done that since 2006 when the company was really taken over and it's now independently owned. We've got a turnover of 4.5 million. 25% of that 4.5 million is in export sales. 60% of those export sales are to the EU. That's the equivalent of about 30% of our overall business is to EU countries. We ship globally to over 500 customers. So we're quite experienced in what has now changed in terms of dealing with the EU, in terms of providing documentation and dealing with the logistics providers in getting goods in and out of the UK. We import and export around 43 different commodities or HS codes. So pre-Brexit, we did quite a lot of work on getting all those up to date in the system, making sure that origins were all up to date and correct, and any evidence, should we need to provide it, was in place. We import from 11 different countries worldwide, 6 of those being EU countries. So those 6 are obviously affected by the changes. we export to over 40 countries worldwide. 18 of those are within the EU. So obviously there's quite a lot of changes there. Within those 18 countries, just within the EU, we send over 50 express shipments every month, and over 10 road haulier shipments each month. So there's quite a lot of changes in terms of, we used to getting an order from an EU customer, processing the order. There's very little documentation needed to get those goods into the EU, whereas now we're having to, make export declarations and provide the correct paperwork, etc. We use a software provider for our business management system that are not very experienced in exporting. So during the past 2 years, we developed the export side of their product to help give us the documentation, etc., that we needed. That's worked fine up until they have now rolled that system out to all of their other customers that are obviously dealing with EU. Now we've always used that. We've always provided the same documentation for our EU shipments as we've always done for our shipments outside of the EU, because the system does it. So we've always just done it. So we were quite confident that we could deal with the change relatively well until Monday, when obviously the software provider has mass rolled out these changes and it's gone wrong. So Monday morning we were fine. Monday afternoon the system just went down, which has caused us some delays in getting the goods out, because where we should be able to get the documentation and the correct information from the system immediately, we're effectively having to do it manually. That's still not being resolved as of today. So that's causing us some issues. Obviously customers are then worried. Customers have major worries anyway regarding the pandemic, the delays that we had just before Christmas due to the pandemic. There were always concerns regarding the logistics and delays and extra costs involved in Brexit. We've negotiated quite a lot with most customers that most customers have accepted that they'll be moving to DAP terms, which is good. We've kind of agreed with a lot of customers where pricing is a real concern, that we would offset those new duty rates with some kind of reimbursement, whether it be a rebate scheme. Obviously, one of the first things that came about after Brexit was, from the customer's point of view, is we're not having any price increases. So i.e., if my product becomes 1% more expensive than it was before, I'll go somewhere else. Which is what we've had to navigate around. I think we've done that. The only other concern is the cost of the import and export declarations. We use DHL for our express shipments. Now DHL, their charges are 25p a kilo, with a minimum charge of £4.50 per shipment, which is relatively low, and we've been able to absorb that in our export declarations as part of the cost of the order. What we've not been able to absorb, obviously, is covering the cost of the import declaration in the EU for the customer. Most of them have accepted that and kind of said they'll move from weekly shipments. Obviously, at the minute we're doing 50 a month express. I think that will drop, and more than likely some customers will probably order only 2 to 3 times a month, whereas some of them are ordering 7 or 8 times a month at the minute. So we'll probably save on, obviously logistically, we'll save on the cost of shipping and freight on that side as well. And then Yeah, so obviously they were the major concerns. Obviously, stockpiling was an issue, and I guess that's what caused some of the delays during December as well. During November and December, we had our highest ever inventory levels. That was quite largely reduced during December. In December this year, our sales were 180% above what they were in December last year. So we're from this first week, we've seen already that apart from a couple of Irish customers, we've received very little in terms of orders from export customers in this first week. Luckily, obviously, because the system's gone down and it's not working as it should, we've not done many exports this week. But typically customers have told us that they've stockpiled between 2 and 3 months worth of orders during that December period. And then obviously we had issues with the delay of the imports. I know Luke just touched on it. You know, during November and December, we had delays of about 2 weeks on imports. Goods were arriving at port and then taking 10 days, 2 weeks to reach us here in Sheffield for various reasons. And then in terms of exports, particularly anything going by sea, we've had a number of issues with shipments being booked and then ships not turning up at port. Miss it, you know, it's getting that long to get to port and get through the port that the shipment's not reaching before the ship's sailing. And then Luke touched on the cost. It's been difficult to handle the differences in costs from one day to the next. You can quote a customer the freight charges today, get the order, and then when you ship it tomorrow, it's a completely different cost. So that's another thing that's been difficult to manage. But overall, this week, Monday morning, I was quite positive that, you know, things were all right. And then with the system delays and with the system not working and things like that, it has caused some issues. But that's not Brexit's fault, in my opinion. It's the software provider's fault. But we'll get there, I think, luckily. And we're working with them to try and resolve it.
Great stuff. Thank you, Kyle. It's really interesting. And we've got quite a few questions already in the chat. So if I'll read out these first questions, and please do, if you have the answer to these questions, because everybody on the call, there's more than 50 people on this call, which is really good. So everybody's coming from a different angle. If you have the answer to any of these questions, please do feel free to just jump in. Okay, so the first question was, the deal is done for free trade with the EU. What does this mean for documentation? Will this mean that further down the line, oh, it's scrolling up, it's scrolling past me. Will this mean that further down the line, the requirement for commercial invoice and custom entries to Europe will cease? Does anybody know the answer to that? No, any thoughts?
From what I understand, that won't be, that'll still be required going forward. From what we're told, you will still need invoices and packing lists even after this first 6 months, because it's still going to be a requirement that entries are done for export and imports at the other side. So from what we understand so far, there'll be no change. It'll be as we are now. Everything will just need an invoice, a packing list going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. That's much appreciated. I think that's something that we'll probably take away and try and find the answer to as well, just so that it's useful for us to know what questions you guys have got, and then we can look to see if we can be of more help or provide some answers afterwards. And question 2, UK now have a trade deal with Turkey. Does this mean that we will now be able to create a UK version of the ATR? Now, Louise, I think you know the answer to this.
At the moment, no, they're not. There's obviously no new version of the ATR. You can't use an UR1. it is just an invoice statement, and that's what is they're expecting it to carry on going forward, or a certificate of origin if customers request it. Whether
Brilliant.
that will change, who knows, because everything is changing all the time. But
Yeah. Well, Louise heads up our international trade department for the Chamber of Commerce, so she is the lady in the know. And like I say, everything keeps changing, but again, we'll keep us eye out for that one. Another question in the chat box is, it says, the problem is the deal is done as far as politics is concerned, but in terms of logistics, everything looks like a no deal scenario. New documentation needed, new docs to prove preferential origin, etc. Is that how it seems, Luke? Does it feel like it has a bit of, does it feel like a no deal scenario as far as logistics?
As I said, I mean, our business and our business model might, and I would imagine it would differ to a lot of some of the major international and national players out there, because we are, as I said in the introduction, we are a very local business, but we are a very big concern in the local area. You know, we do employ, over 200-300 people in the local area. So we're by no means small fry, but at the same time, a lot of the work we do, we work direct for the shipping lines. So in terms of the logistics with regarding all the documents, etc., we don't really see that. As far as we're concerned, there could be 10, 15, 20 days worth of delays due to documentation, but we wouldn't necessarily see it. You know, we will get our allocation of work daily from the shipping lines. In theory, the majority of those containers then that we collect from the numerous rail terminals that are dotted around the country, or the numerous ports that are dotted around, Britain as well. They could have well had all their delays in the information, but we wouldn't see that. So as far as, like I said in the intro, as far as we're concerned, it really hasn't changed a great deal for us.
Okay, and how about anybody else? Is this something that you've experienced or that you know any more about?
It's Kyle, sorry. I had a conversation yesterday, mainly because DHL sent an announcement out Monday morning saying that they're requesting all customers with express shipments to put on this new exporter statement declaring the preferential origin. Now, I just saw a question pop up, and somebody said it seems like the dealing with the European exports now is proving more difficult than the rest of the world. And I think, like for us, because we're an import of goods from Asia and within the EU, and also supplying UK made goods, it kind of is, because what we're having to do now is I mentioned we're exporting 43 different commodities. We're having to kind of break that down now and provide evidence of, a mixture of any of those commodities could come from what's now the UK is also has become a third party now in the EU, like the rest of the world has. So we're having to work with a software provider to get that evidence off the system immediately, so we can give the breakdown on the export declaration of what commodities are coming from what country, because obviously we don't want to misdeclare and customers pay duty on goods that are either EU made or UK made.
If I may join you on this one, Kyle, William Beckett speaking. I joined the Netherlands British Chamber of Commerce webinar last 2 weeks ago, which was a 3-hour webinar, believe it or not, with 11 presentations. But the presentations include everything we've been talking about, particularly when you start talking about certificates of origin and so on. And I can send you afterwards the link to give you the breakdown and how you calculate it and how you view it as regards all various component parts. You can imagine how complicated it is, for example, for the automotive industry. But there is documentation available or paperwork there to show you how it's calculated. And it will help you to assess where you might be considering some of your own exports. But the paperwork is there. And I think that possibly it may also be there on the old .gov, government.gov transition. It may be still available on there. So I'd check that out. But basically, the fundamental thing about all the exports we're doing now as Carl's alluded to, and also others, that fundamentally it's like exporting to the rest of the world that we're used to. Of course, there are certain differences, but I mean, even if we're going the rest of the world, we'd be talking in terms of countries of origin, not necessarily as detailed as we have to now, admittedly. But I'm quite happy to circulate this complete presentation of 3 hours if you want to see it, because you can pick and choose what you want, of course. You don't have to listen to it for 3 hours. But the one regarding certificates of origin is very, very good and very important for you to check out.
William, would you be able to send that over to me and I can circulate it to all delegates after this?
I was not going to consider anything other than that, Kerry.
Thank you.
That's brilliant. That's exactly what we want from sessions like this, though. Just that sharing. If we can make people's lives easier, then that's brilliant. Thank you, William, for that. It's much appreciated. So does that answer Lisa Ballard? Does that answer your question, or do you want to ask it? Sorry. All right, there's a question from Lisa. I don't know, not everybody's able to speak to us on some of these things because they're traveling and things, but the question is, do we need the importer's EORI number in order to ship? It feels harder to ship European shipments than ROW shipments. I think that is similar to what Kyle, is that the answer, the question that you were answering, Kyle?
Well, more of questioning it myself as well rather than answering it, but yeah, as far as I'm aware, we've edited all our documentation to show our EORI number and also the customer's EORI number on all documents. So importer and exporter EORI number on all documents.
Okay, so Lisa, I think that's the answer, if that's helpful. What evidence, so D. Cole has asked, what evidence is needed for proof of export? Is that the same?
Yeah, I mean, we don't declare our own exports. We get our couriers to do it. Or mainly we provide the invoice detail, obviously stock code and value and everything and number of parts. We just use the cover sheet. As far as I'm aware, Luke might know better, is the invoice cover sheet that we provide has everything on there, shipper, consignee, buyer. That has the breakdown of your commodities, number of pieces and value. And that's what's used to declare the export. You can get access to do that yourself, but it is law binding. So if you get that wrong or make any mistakes, it's your responsibility, and that's why we use exports to do that for us. And that's what the extra charges are for.
Good morning. My name is Diana Cole. I work for Lincoln Electric Corporation. We're a multi-billion-pound multinational with factories in Europe and the UK and the rest of the world. And I agree with the earlier comments regarding it being more difficult to deal with Europe now than the rest of the world, and to deal with Ireland, especially with Ireland. My regards with the proof of origin. I have the origin from, say, our plants in Poland. I know where it's manufactured. I'm just wondering what evidential documentation do I need to keep? Should I be inspected or asked to prove that we're manufacturing in Poland? Does anybody know what evidence is going to be required for this?
You might learn something from the documentation I'm going to supply to you through Carrie. It's very detailed as regards the information you require for origins of products, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Brilliant. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask before we move on?
Sorry, me again. One last question. With Carl, when you were saying about the comments from DHL, I saw this also at the beginning of the week requiring the extra declaration. Are you needing to put original signatures on all of your European shipments now, on European shipment invoices?
No, particularly with DHL, for quite a while now, even with some of our rest of the world shipments, they've been paperless for quite a while, certain countries. So you don't essentially have to sign anything or give it a wet mark, as they say. Is we, for our EU shipments this week and for some of the rest of the world shipments for quite a long time, when we book the shipments via DHL, there is an option to tick a box that says go paperless. This is literally where you just upload the invoices and export docs as part of the processing the shipment, and therefore, you know, we don't need to do what we used to do and print 3 or 4 copies of all the invoices and all the export docs and stamp and sign them. It's all uploaded now in DHL as part of the new system, the paperless system. So to answer your question, no. But for the haulage shipments, we always send an electronic copy of any paperwork to the haulier, and then we also print and send those with the goods.
Thank you.
Great. So has anybody got any other questions that you'd like to ask or any concerns? And what we've noticed, because we, as Luke mentioned, I'm part of the Newell and Wright group, and we've got a manufacturing firm as well. And because we weren't sure about what was going to come with Brexit, we stockpiled a lot of materials. Has that been a common thing? Of businesses kind of not been sure, so imported lots ready for manufacture, or did any businesses kind of do a lot of that beforehand just in case Brexit was a bigger concern?
I mean, we did stockpile goods, but it's maybe in some respects not worked in our favour because we're importing some. To be honest, the vast majority of our goods are Chinese origin, and nothing takes place. So they go back when they're exported, they're still Chinese origin. Our previous duty rate on most of our goods on import was 2.7%. So obviously in the last 3 months we have stockpiled them, not really because of Brexit in terms of trying to avoid any extra duties or anything like that, but just to make sure that the supply's there for the customers and make sure that, you know, we're avoiding any kind of delays on imports. We imported quite a lot. We did stockpile, and now from the 1st of January, the UK global tariff on our products has gone from 2.7% while we were part of the EU to 0. So if we'd have not stockpiled them goods and we'd have done that now, we'd have saved 2.7% duty on all them goods. So yeah, we've stockpiled, but you know, it has had a cost effect on us by doing that. But you know, without doing that, based on what the customers did to us in December, we would have been a very short supply.
Has anybody else got any experiences that they'd like to share, so we can feed the information back as well?
Just to say, our bean counters wouldn't allow us to stockpile. They refused. We requested to put extra stock in, but we weren't allowed to.
Who was that? Sorry, that you were. Who stopped you?
The Americans, our American lords and masters, refused to allow us to hold any more stocks.
Okay, is that something that's happened before? Is that purely because of Brexit?
I think there was a lot of Brexit. We asked for more stock for Brexit, and it was end of year. They declined the request.
So what grounds would that be on? What would it be as a detriment to them to do that? This is purely my naivety talking now.
Just cost of goods stock in our end of year figures.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting.
I think from the Chamber's point of view that we, and it's the royal we, I speak on behalf of Louise, we're incredibly busy, you know, and what we're here to do is try and channel all these queries and concerns to the powers that be, you know. So we would obviously go to the British Chambers of Commerce to champion or lobby for changes or for answers that you may need. So what we need from all of you, if you could either raise it on here or in the chat or verbally or email me afterwards, general or specific concerns that you have, for us to try and get those answers for you. I think the current issues is that we've been so busy this week is that there aren't any answers on certain questions, which we are trying to get for clients and customers. Lou, not to put you on the spot, but did you want to add anything to it, especially about the Chamber Customs? Obviously, we're involved in the Chamber Customs programme.
Not really. We are doing obviously customs declarations now as of Monday. So that's now gone live, so we can do customs declarations. I think what was being said previously, we're not expecting that to change, even though there's a deal. They will still need customs declarations doing. So.
And how are the numbers doing? So obviously we're thinking about the COVID situation as well, because it's all hit us at once. What were the numbers? What was the activity before compared to now? What are the numbers of people coming to us for their export documentation?
Probably obviously slower this week than it was before Christmas, but that's normal for January anyway. But there have been quite a few documents still. A lot of the documents that we do are rest of the world rather than EU as well. So that has still been busy.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've just had a question from Reese. Would it be possible to clarify if we need to send goods to Northern Ireland on ISPM 15 wood? I'm seeing hearing different things from different sources. That's a really specific question. I don't know the answer to that. Does anybody know the answer to that one? So that's to clarify, if we need to send goods to Northern Ireland on ISPM 15 wood, because he is seeing and hearing different things from different sources.
From what I understand, the problem is if the cargo goes to Ireland and Northern Ireland is served via Dublin depots, then the EU, you have to have ISPM 15 wood pallets. So if the carrier is taking the goods into Dublin before they're delivering to Northern Ireland, then yeah, you're going to have a problem because it should be on ISPM 15. However, if your carrier is going into Northern Ireland directly, then from what we're told, you don't need to, because it's just treated as the UK. So hopefully that helps.
Well, that definitely helped me out, Andrew, because I didn't have a clue of the answer to that one. So that was much appreciated. I hope that answers your question, Reese. Any other questions from anybody? I don't want to hold everybody in the forum if people feel that they've asked the questions that they want to ask. Has anybody got anything else that they would like to ask before we draw to a close?
Well, I can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect.
Okay. Right. Yesterday, we had some shipments to go into Europe and one also to go into Norway. So we never got involved in anything related to this sort of thing before. What we did, if it's of any help, the goods the specialist items we manufacture, all our prices were ex works. So we said to our customers, you arrange collection, the goods are ready. And in one case, it was a German company that was the carriers. They instructed us what forms they wanted filling. They sent it to us, what kind of a letter they wanted. They sent that to us. We wrote the letter, sent it to them. They came and they collected. So we had also TNT did the same. So we had literally, they told us what to do. We filled in the forms, what they did, and it went. And another one was done yesterday, and they're going to come and collect today. So we put the ball in the court of our customers. So here you are, it's X Works, it's waiting for you. Tell us what you want. And that's how we got around it yesterday. If that's of any help to anybody.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Ken. How did the customer feel about that? It's an interesting method. What was their feedback, or is that what they expected?
No, they had no problem at all because they placed the order. We gave them the price. We gave them the price X works. They accepted that they have to collect it. So we said, right, it's waiting for you to collect. We gave them all the dimensions, and they contacted their carrier, and the carrier gave us all the instructions what they wanted us to do. And basically, they did all the stuff. We just filled in all the details there. And obviously, one particular one wanted my signature and duplicate copies. And obviously, some of them asked for many copies of invoices, many copies of which is not a problem, just to put the copies and put them into the box. And they came and collected it. So we would try to, in our case, we will try to operate in that manner, sort of put the ball in their court if they want to. In other words, they are importing.
Okay.
Just got a bit of a comment on that. We had a similar deal with a customer in the Netherlands who were effectively on FCA terms. When I spoke to the Sheffield, because we're a member of the Sheffield Chamber, when I spoke to the Sheffield Chamber regarding what we would do going forward with that, is we were told any kind of X works or FCA terms, and I'm sure there'll be some experts here that know more than I do, is that by doing any of those terms, you kind of passing the responsibility of doing the export declaration to your customer and not yourself. So in my theory, by doing what you've done, Kenneth, is that you effectively have put the responsibility of the export in your customer's hands, and they might do that either wrong or not do it at all, or and that responsibility would ultimately come back to you, I believe. So we've with those customers again, we've gone to DAP terms and negotiated alternative arrangements to offset any extra costs involved.
Kyle, with DAP terms, so you're responsible for the export declarations, aren't you? But they're responsible for the import declarations.
Yeah.
And so, Ken's obviously got some very understanding customers who are willing to accept X work. So hold on to those customers if you can, Ken, because I don't think many businesses will get away with that. So well done. But as Kyle says, if you're passing all the responsibility of export declarations to your customer, it still comes down to your responsibility to have done it correctly. So you are subcontracting it, but you ought to keep an eye on that as well.
Well, Peter, I have something else up. We filled in all the forms, and in this particular case, I wasn't really worried about it because they had already paid me. So I was paid in full. So I had nothing to worry about.
Well, as I keep saying, you've got some wonderful customers, Ken, if they pay you beforehand as well. But still, the responsibility of ensuring that it's been exported correctly still lies with you, whether they've paid or not.
And what would be the consequence of that? So if that transaction works perfectly for Kenneth and he's been paid and they've got the goods, but then the export documentation has not been completed properly, what would be the consequence on a business like Kenneth?
You might get an HMRC audit, and then they might request that you provide evidence of exporting to ensure that you've covered your VAT correctly.
Okay, I'm asking because there's a comment as well from Gary saying to be careful on this too. If you're selling zero VAT, then you will need the export documentation and custom entries from your customer to provide if an HMRC audit comes to repay the VAT if you do not have the docs.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's and HMRC go through periods of auditing. They'll go to certain areas and they'll do a geographic area of just checking businesses in that area.
Okay, so it's great to hear those different approaches as well. Another question from I'm going to say D Cole. I hate calling you D Cole. I do apologise. Does anyone else have examples of the pallet charges for customs clearance? Pallet weighs are charging £75 per consignment of one pallet. Thanks, Diane. That is Diana, sorry, that's Diana's question. So does anybody know, does anyone have any examples of pallet charges for custom clearance? Diana, that might be something that we have to come back to you with. We'll try and find that out and share that. Is that all right, Carrie?
Yeah, we'll do a bit of digging for you, Diana, and we'll come back to you directly on that one, if we can do, of course. But
That's great.
you're welcome.
We've decided to absorb all the costs of exporting to Europe for the first 3 months, and then we're going to review and decide what to go with it next. The costs at the moment just
Okay, well,
I
Gary,
don't know whether it's just we're being overcharged or this is what everyone else is experiencing.
yeah, it's unique. That's the thing, isn't it? There's kind of no benchmark now, is there? It's weighing up. You might get charges, you might get invoices landing, and there's an element of you not knowing, is this going to be the average price, or is somebody overcharging us? Gary has said that most are now giving up to 5 commodity entries as part of the movement, and then an additional £3-ish per additional commodity. So, like I said, I don't know how helpful that is, but that's Gary's input, and we'll do a little bit of digging and come back to you as well. Okay. So we're 10 minutes off finishing. It's brilliant that we've got, we're going to get a document from William Beckett to share with everybody. So really, really appreciate that. Has anybody else got any questions before we draw to a close? Any concerns or anything that you would like us to raise? Anything that you would like me to take forward on behalf of our members and get any other clarification with?
Yes, what could you do to remove some of the red tape?
Okay, I will ask the question. That's what my job is as president. That is my job, to sit with some of these people. What I will have to do is get a nice big thick list of red tape so that I've got some specifics to talk to them about. But I think that is the question that we ask ourselves every day in everything that we do. How do we get rid of the red tape and the bureaucracy? But I'll make sure that I take that forward. Has anybody else got anything that you would like me to take forward?
Just the cost of business, the cost of the businesses in the UK for our wire factory in Sheffield of now doing business in Europe it's becoming prohibitive. I know that our European bosses are looking to cut off the Ireland route and deal with it through France going forward, because I can't see the point of what value are we adding. And I think that the costs of the customs clearance, it's too high. It's too high for businesses that are already struggling.
And that's mainly around the clearance, custom clearance.
Yeah, the customs clearance and the rules of origin as well. Statement from our lawyers in Brussels this morning on, and we've paid companies we've paid an outside legal company in the rules of origin for us. We know that we're liable moving forward, and we're not sure how. We're never going to be able to recoup any of these costs.
Okay, that's brilliant. Any other questions before we draw to a close? Well, I've learned a lot from there, so thank you. My brain is slightly boggled. Thank you in particular to Kyle from Presto and Luke from Newell and Wright Transport for your time this morning. It's much appreciated. We know that you're really, really busy. If anybody has got any questions, obviously for those individuals, you can contact them directly. You know which companies that they've come from. If you've got any questions for us at the Chamber or anything that you'd like me to move forward and take as far as policy and conversations with MPs, ministers, and putting things forward to the British Chambers of Commerce, then you know exactly where I am. You contact the Chamber, you're welcome to email, you're welcome to contact me on LinkedIn. We're here to support. So thank you for your time. It's much appreciated. Carrie, is there anything you want to add before we draw to a close?
Yeah, if I may, today is the first of 2021 of these webinars. This is within a whole program that we are running from now until the end of March via both local authorities that we're in partnership with. So keep your eyes peeled, please, for future webinars certainly on Brexit support. We have a planning session later on today to plan closer to the end of March for additional webinars, etc. Within that support, we have free training courses for any businesses that fall within the region as well of ourselves. Keep an eye out for additional webinars that we'll be placing on. Slight plug, we've got a couple coming up next week. So one on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, I believe. It's with our partners at Money Corp. That is Brexit and COVID, managing foreign exchange risk. So that might be something for you to book onto. And then on next Friday, 9 o'clock, I believe, Diane, it's with the Bank of England. So that'll be a really good one for us as well. I will circulate post-event links to those, so please book on if you think they will be beneficial to you. But there's going to be plenty more content and opportunities for you to get involved in going forward. Certainly up until the end of March. After March, we are hopeful that we're going to be offering something similar April to the end of the year as well. But please come to us as a chamber, as an international trade department, or speak to the president if you want to go higher up in the chain of things. But please use your Chamber of Commerce for guidance and support through COVID and Brexit. So please keep us in mind. And to echo Joada's comments, thank you very much for your support today and in general. And hopefully we'll see you next week and beyond.
Carrie, if I may just join in, or add on rather, as the International Trade Forum, we are also linking in with overseas or European chambers to find out whether the Dutch particularly have been on the ball for over 12 months. They've been holding these type of things almost every 2 weeks. And already they did their first one on the 29th of December. They've got another one this afternoon with a lot of British speakers as well. So it's not just inside, it's covering all different aspects of the exporting. But what I would also throw in was your links and our links with the Enterprise European Network. Jenny Lawson's probably already been overwhelmed by the thing, but I mean, for anything that's pretty technical, I would strongly recommend the EEN based in Leeds, Enterprise European Network, because they are really on the ball and they are linked with all the overseas chambers as well.
That's really useful. Thank you, William. It's all about sharing knowledge and making life as easy as possible so that we can just focus on business. So that's really appreciated, and thank you for sharing your document with us in advance. I appreciate that. I hope you all have a lovely day. You know where we are if you need anything, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you soon.